said on the show or any of its platforms constitutes a client-attorney relationship or serves as legal advice counsel. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to Igniting Change, its platforms, or the show's host. It's time now for Igniting Change, a weekly provocative and empowering program where you, the listener, can ignite change. Now here's your host, Barbara Arnwine.
Get up, stand up.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Igniting Change. We are so glad that you have joined us today. What a great day it is for us to be talking about justice. We got a real show for you. We're going to be speaking about what do you do when prosecutors and your state attorney generals are acting inappropriately, wrongheadedly, persecuting young people for no good reason other than to make themselves look good. Let's talk about what's going on in Florida, what's going on in our whole country regarding voting rights, our First Amendment rights. So we have a really amazing show for you today. And before we get into that, the subject of the show, you know I got to bring up my co-host, the one and only chairman of the board of the Transformative Justice Coalition. Plus, he is one of the most amazing voting rights, civil rights lawyers in this country. I'm talking about none other than Daryl D. Jones. Hey, Daryl.
Hey, Barbara, it must be Tuesday, it must be noon Eastern Standard Time because we're talking about igniting change across America. Barbara, it's a real interesting show we're going to have today. We're picking up from a theme show that we had picked up previously on dealing with that Tampa 5 and the students there that were arrested for exercising their First Amendment rights and now being charged with felony charges. It's just incredible. The state of Florida just seem to stay in the news with regards to absurd things that they're doing. And this just wrong-headed prosecution of the Florida 5, goodness, how much can you say about being wrong? I mean, this is just incredible, Barbara, and I can't wait to get to the students that are part of this case.
Absolutely. And I am so happy that I believe we've been joined by Laura Rodriguez. Laura, are you there?
Hello, this is Laura Rodriguez, and I'm joined with another of the Tampa 5, Lauren Pinero, on the same call.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And can you, we wanted to welcome you back to our show. We're very sad and disgusted that these charges are still pending and being pursued viciously and aggressively by the district attorney. We want to talk to the nation about what's happening so that people will understand this fight. Can you please, since it was months ago when you joined us last, can you please tell our audience, just refresh them, what happened, why there is this case pending against you, why they're trying to convict you and put you in jail for 10 years. Oh, my goodness, why are they bringing felonies when none of this should be in the court at all? Can you please tell people more about this case?
Yeah, so on March 6th, the Tampa Bay chapter of Students for a Democratic Society held a protest at the University of South Florida here in Tampa. So our protest was against House Bill 99, which later passed as SB 266, which is a bill that bans funding for ethnic studies, diversity programs, women's and gender studies, and even could ban multicultural student groups and student activist groups. And it also attacks professors' tenure. So this is a huge overhaul of academic freedom that this bill was, if this bill had passed, which it did later pass. So that's why we ultimately decided to protest that day. And we marched to our president's office. We were in the lobby of the building, and we had very simple demands. We just wanted to get a meeting with her. She is very hard to reach. We had tried calling her, emailing her, and she was ignoring the students who very clearly were against these types of bans and wanted to see diversity on their campuses. So we went to her, the building where her office is, and we wanted her to release a statement condemning these attacks and committing to protecting diversity on campus. And we also wanted her to resume the search for vice president of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion office on our campus, because she had put that on pause because of DeSantis' policies and legislation. So that's what our protest was for. We were in that office for 5 minutes when around 15 USF police officers entered the building, and very quickly the chief of police grabbed a student without warning, just grabbed her mid-sentence. She almost fell to the floor, and from there all of the police officers joined in brutalizing students. They arrested 4 students that day, or 4 protesters. 2 of them were students, Gia Davila and Jeannie Kita. One was a community activist, Laura Rodriguez, who is on this call today, and a campus worker, Chrisley Carpio. So they were brought to the jail and charged with a felony for battery on a law enforcement officer and 2 misdemeanors, one for disrupting campus activity and another for resisting arrest without violence. So I myself was added a month later to the case. I was sitting in a women's and gender studies class, which I find very ironic, when I received notice that they were adding me to the case as well, and I was facing the same charges. And quickly after I joined, they ended up doubling the felony counts on 3 of the 5. So that's where the 10 years comes from.
Wow. And Ms. Pinero, I know that you're here. Are you still a student? What have they done with your status as a student at the university?
Yeah, so the semester that this happened over in the spring, that was actually my last semester as a student. I was in my senior year, and I only found out I could graduate 2 days before my graduation because I had to go through these student conduct hearings. I was found in violation of a number of conduct violations. I think it was like 6 of them. They found me guilty, but they ultimately were unable to expel me because of the amount of students calling in from around the country and placing pressure on the school. And because of that, I was able to graduate and walk. So we saw that as a huge win for our case.
Okay. All right. And Ms. Rodriguez, you're with us too?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what was your experience, Ms. Rodriguez?
So I myself that day, I was pulled by cops. I was dragged across the floor. I had a cop put her arm around my neck a couple times, and was sitting in a hot cop car, like in Florida, for about 3 hours before they transferred us to the jail. But while it was like a very scary experience, I wasn't scared about what would happen because I knew as soon as I was placed in handcuffs and as soon as I was taken, that Students for a Democratic Society was instantly organizing around our release, and our release was actually expedited. It could take up to 12, 16 hours, but we got out within 4 hours because of the sheer amount of public pressure that was put on the jail and USF.
So when you say that the officer's arm was around your neck, do you mean like in a chokehold?
Yes.
And at that point, had you offered any resistance? Had you pushed the officer? Had you said something to the officer to warrant some type of strong arming like that of you?
At the time, they were dragging one of the protesters 20 feet across concrete while she was seemingly unconscious. So it was we're the ones who consistently started and continued the violence.
And let me get this straight. There has not to this day been any charges against these officers for this brutalization of the students. Is that correct?
No. Yeah, the school has actually sided with the police. So the President Real Law released a statement saying the police did nothing against training that day, even though they placed Laura in a chokehold, and even though the chief of police, Chris Daniel, actually groped one of the Tampa 5, Gia Davila.
And to this date, the president of the university, has she said anything to request that they drop these charges, to request that the police be reprimanded or disciplined so that they do not brutalize the students of that university again? Has anything of that nature happened?
No, like I said, she has completely sided with the police. She said they did nothing against training, despite the fact that they were brutalizing us and using unlawful, what's the word I'm looking for? Unlawful,
excessive use of
force against us.
Mm-hmm.
And she did say that they need more training, but ultimately she said that they did nothing wrong, and she continues to side with them today.
Absolutely outrageous. Go ahead, Daryl.
Part of the reason that you guys were protesting was the Senate Bill 266. What's the status of the bill?
So the bill did pass. I believe it will go into I don't know if it has already gone into effect or if it will go into effect next year, but it has passed, and I believe we're going to start seeing the effects of that. And we already have kind of seen the effects of that. Actually, at FSU, the Florida State University in Tallahassee, they cut one of their race and gender courses, which we see as a direct response to these attacks happening on public education. And we see that these bills that bill in particular is actually being copied and pasted and passed in states like Louisiana, Texas, and Kentucky. And that's why we as the Tampa Five and our committee, the Committee to Defend the Tampa Five, decided to go on a national speaking tour because we knew that this and Ron DeSantis' policies were going to become a national problem, especially his run for president. And so from that, we went to over 30 different cities across the U.S. from East Coast to West Coast, had thousands of organizations of civil rights or elected officials from Chicago down here to Florida sign statements and send letters to the state attorney who, if we remember, it was not elected. She is not an elected official. She was appointed by Ron DeSantis after he fired our elected state attorney, Andrew Warren, for him saying that he was not going to prosecute women who had abortions. And because of all of the thousands of statements that were sent into her office, all of the call-ins, we knew that we were putting pressure on them, and that ultimately we have actually a big legal update because we had a pretrial hearing this morning. Yeah, so a couple hours ago, we actually got the news that we are getting our charges dismissed. We're going through a misdemeanor intervention program, so all we need to do is 20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We just found out.
That's wonderful news. All right, now, that's what I wanted to hear.
You said they're making you go through a misdemeanor intervention program. What is that?
Yeah, let's hear more.
Yeah, so it's a diversion program. We're basically, for the next year, we're going to be within this program, and we have to follow certain conditions. So the main one is we have 24 hours of community service to complete. We are also banned from campus unless you're an enrolled student or an employee on campus, which we see as a huge win, even though we're banned from the rest of the campus. And we're just going to have to check in with the court regularly for the next year, and after the year, our charges will be dismissed, and we can get them expunged from our records.
Well, that's a major development, and and tell us, what was the atmosphere like quickly before we go to break in a minute? Can you tell us just what was the atmosphere like in that courtroom today?
It was pretty we were trying, because we found out about the deal prior to the court hearing, so we were trying to kind of contain our excitement, and the prosecutor wouldn't actually even look at us, and compared to the last time we were in court, he turned to us and specifically called Gia Davila out and said that she needed to stop talking to the press. And
oh, no.
Now, yeah. And now at this court hearing, he didn't even look us in the eye. So it was a very big loss for him. And it was a huge.
All right, everybody, hold your joy. We're going to be right back because we want to hear more about this hearing. We want to hear more about what are next steps in this fight to preserve diversity, equity, and inclusion in the colleges in Florida. We'll be right back. Don't you dare touch that dial. You know what time it is. It's called Igniting Change time.
1250 AM and 95.9 FM 959.
Good afternoon. Now this WOL traffic update. PC 295.